Thank you. It's nice to be here. This is something that we've been talking about for a couple of years and kept on getting delayed. And I think we've kind of all had a lot of time to reflect on the places that we live. And I've quite often through the last year and a half thought about some of the children that I met and kind of imagined what they've been going through, because I think, I've now got an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old boys, and I kind of saw how important your home environment became. And, I think lots of kids have kind of been confined to their house and their bedroom. So this is a project that I started quite a while ago. I was actually asked to come up with an exhibition idea for UNICEF for their 60th anniversary. And the first thing I did when they asked me to do the project was to kind of look at the imagery that they make. And I kind of was struck that it fell into two categories. It tended either to be a child that was in a very bad situation. It could have been after an earthquake or a flood. And you felt very sorry for the kid. Or it was a kid who was maybe in not a great situation but was smiling. And I think that's obviously because most of their photography is used for kind of to ask us to give money. And so it kind of works quite emotively. But as I kind of looked at the kids, I kind of had this impression that I didn't know that much about them. So I was thinking, okay, this is going to be an exhibition. How can we know more about the kids? And I kind of thought back to my own childhood. And I thought, how would have you known more about me when I was little? And I kind of thought, my bedroom. That was the place in my house that I was allowed to kind of make my own. And I think my bedroom had reflected a little bit how I'd grown up. So I was born in Kenya, and maybe if you'd gone into my bedroom when I was 6, you would have kind of found a few kind of little wooden African kind of elephants and kind of wildebeest and zebras, and and then as I became older, I had this phase where I was really in army, so I had an army kind of camouflage bedspread, and then it had kind of changed to kind of Madonna was big. I had a Duran Duran wall and a Madonna wall, and then from there it had gone into kind of more like Led Zeppelin and kind of the Rolling Stones, and then the kind of rave scene hit and it became rave posters. So I kind of felt that it had reflected kind of something about me. And I kind of looked back at these kids and I kind of thought, where do they sleep? What's their bedroom like? So I had this idea, and then because it was for UNICEF, I think there was another idea that there's the Declaration. I read the Declaration of Human Rights, which says that we're all born equal, and I think that's obviously it's a great statement, and it's something I believe in. But I've also seen that our realities are very different. So I was thinking that maybe I'm going to try and treat the kids equally by photographing them on this plain background. And then the bedroom is going to talk about a bit more about their reality and their circumstances. And I often work in this typographical way where I almost make the same picture each time repeated. I started that in the first book I did, which is called James and Other Apes, and that's 50 portraits of chimpanzees, gorillas and orangutans, but they're all taken as passport photos, exactly the same. And I think that kind of flicking through those, you see this kind of from pale skin to freckles, and you begin to kind of see this identity that emerges. And I think I wanted to kind of continue with that project where I would photograph kids in the same way. It didn't matter where I was. So I said that I thought it was important that we also photographed kids from America, from Europe, and also to look at kind of some of the problems that kids are facing in the Western world, because then it won't be that quite us and them. I thought, that's quite a good idea. So as I then began to get jobs and go around, I would stay on and photograph kids. So the project is quite organic in the sense that I had a job in Brazil. I'd stay on and find kids in Brazil. I had an exhibition in Japan. I went and found kids in Japan. Because it's self-funded, it had that slightly kind of organic process that followed other things that I was doing. And then as I began to get to the end of the project, there were a few places that I felt were important to go to. And one of those was I wanted to go and see kind of how Israeli kids and how Palestinian kids are living, and I think that the project almost became a kind of vehicle for me to look at some quite complex issues that are happening in the world. If I photographed an adult Palestinian or an adult Israeli, you somehow kind of implicitly think that they're responsible for the situation they are, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. But with children, you're able to kind of look at the situation and talk about it in I hope, in a non-judgmental way. So the project was also, for me, it was also important to do an interview with each kid, and some of those are more successful than not. Sometimes you're speaking with somebody who, with the younger kids, sometimes, you're talking more about their situation, or, you talk to their parents. And I hope that through the way that I tried to give it a kind of trip round the world. Obviously, I haven't been to all countries. I mean, I'm still doing the project, so I was going to publish the new book last year, but because of COVID, I've got a few more stories that I want to get, so I've had to delay that. But I hope that upstairs that you'll see these little windows, these little realities of kids and how they're living and what their experience is, and it just kind of gives you a sense of the kind of hugely different realities that people are living in the world today.